Hey guys, Dr. Nate here, and today is going to be a little different because I just had a great interview with Fred Joyal from 1-800-Dentist. He had spent $500 million on marketing for dentists. $500 million. That number blew my mind. So it was a great interview. I got to learn a ton on how he did it, what worked, what did not work, what he's doing now. He just has a new book out, which I highly, highly recommend. So yes, today's gonna be a little different format, but if you want to learn behind the scenes of dentistry, how we advertise and market and how to become the best dental offices possible. We're learning from the best. This guy's like the best. If you grew up in the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s, you've definitely seen his face on a ton of ads. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. This is Fred Joyal with 1-800-Dentist.
All right, Fred. So I'm excited to get into this. So I think once people kind of watch this, they're going to know your face, know your voice, because you've been around, especially in the dental space, for such a long time. So I'm excited to pick your brain because I know a lot has changed. I was doing some research before we started this, and you've been around for a long time. You've been around in the
I know.
marketing.
Yeah. And today is my birthday, by the way.
Oh,
So you're getting a
congratulations.
special performance.
Happy birthday.
Yeah,
Happy
man,
birthday.
and that nothing reminds you've been around a long time like your birthday at this point.
So I'm interested. So you've been in the dental field or in the dental realm for a while. I know you're doing some different books and stuff. We'll get into that. But what made you get into that when I know you co-founded 1-800-Dentist under the umbrella of Futuredonics. What brought you to that? Like what made you get into that field?
It was really a combination of things. I worked in an ad agency. I was a copywriter in an ad agency, and then eventually, very briefly, a creative director. Uh, and I loved it, but I didn't like the career arc of the business because it swoops up, you make a lot of money, and then it drops off a cliff at about 48 years old, and you can't get a job. Never mind make 300-400 grand a year. And so I was watching this happen to people, and I thought, I got to have my own business. And then just coincidentally, a friend of mine had registered the 800 dentist phone number, and it was ringing to his house. And he was like the laziest entrepreneur mankind has ever known. So he was like, I think this could really be a business. And I said, well, I'm not working with you because you don't work. So he
That's
said, no,
fun.
I'll just license the phone number to you and you run with it. And he actually had a vague idea of what the business would look like. But as we know in life, it's all about execution.
Sure.
Ideas aren't even a dime a dozen. That's overpaying. Um, and so uh, I just made a bunch of radio commercials and was going around to these dentists playing the radio commercials saying, we're going to start running these ads. Do you want to participate? And I probably talked to 100 and something dentists because this was 1986. And so people weren't advertising, and they weren't, for the most part. It had really only become legal in 79. And so I finally found 18 doctors and to go along with it. And I had no idea what was going to happen. But we just set up a little call center, and we got 50 phone calls the first day we started running ads. And it was like a holy shit moment, right? Like, wow, this
Wow.
might actually work. So we just kept, and this was all in LA. We did like one geographic area. And so we just kept adding doctors every month, adding doctors, adding media, adding doctors, adding media, then adding cities. And we did like 10 cities in California. Then we jumped to New York, then Chicago. We worked all of the big cities and then gradually became nationwide over a decade. But it was probably 2.5 years in before it was profitable
Yep.
because we were just spending all the money. We would spend every penny we had on advertising, uh, and and just paying the next month's advertising bills with the doctors that joined that we had added with the extra money. And we never took any investment. We took $30,000 from our family. And that was the
Not much.
only investment we had. And nobody would have bet on us anyway. So
Yeah, yeah.
the head of my ad agency said, this will never work. Uh, and so because I was quitting my job to do it because he was mad that I was quitting. And I'm sure that he kept watching for decades, kept watching all of these 800 dentist commercials on the air because we spent
Right.
$500 million in television advertising over 25 years. And so I'm sure he was sitting there going, maybe this works.
I should have bet on it. Maybe it's
Yeah.
interesting you say that. I like how you mentioned that. I mean, it took you guys 2 years to become profitable. You know, sometimes even in offices, you open up, you expect to be, running and gunning right off the bat. The first couple months, you're like, what's going on? But it's interesting that you said it took 2 years. So it's good to have a little patience and foresight. So how did you know? I guess you didn't know, but how did you kind of keep going, thinking that eventually this is going to pay off? Like the first, 5, 6, 7 months, you're like, oh my gosh, is this going to work? And then I guess you see some momentum, but did you know it was going to pay off as well as it did? And then how did you keep going?
Well, one of the key things when you're undertaking something completely new and challenging, and you basically have to invent it, is it's really important to give yourself no way out.
Yeah.
And because then you have to figure it out, then you have to solve it. And we had debt. We had owed TV stations hundreds of thousands of dollars. We had signed personally on a lease. As you know, I don't know, when you start businesses, you sign personally on everything. So we both would have had to go, my partner and I, we would have just had to go completely bankrupt if we closed. So we just had to keep going. Uh, and then all of a sudden, it happened when we switched from radio to television. Radio got a really good patient, but it was a really expensive patient. Um, and television just brought this whole new level. And we just figured out how to produce television commercials inexpensively, and got lucky because the first ad we created was a home run. It just
Wow.
resonated with people, and it was real simple and clear. And that was an important lesson too. It's like, don't get tricky, don't get clever, say what you do. um, and and that's when uh, it we tripled our membership over the course of 90 days, from the
After the
television.
first few ads, after the first few TV
Yeah, as
ads.
soon as the television hit,
Wow.
because all of a sudden the doctors started seeing it, their spouse started seeing it, and we had credibility, and we
Mm.
had really happy doctors. That was the other thing. We had doctors
Mm.
who said, this is really working for me. Like, I'm getting, really good patients out of this every month, and it's worth every penny. And we were charging $1,000 a month back then.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
wow. That's amazing. So then you guys switch to TV. So then you do that for a while. Then you really read the book, or you write the book rather, that I think every single dentist pretty much has read, or if they haven't, they should read it. Everything is marketing. So what brought you to that? You just said, "Hey, I want to get it out there more. We've done radio, we've done TV. Let me get some sort of different physical copy that dentists can dig their teeth into." Or what was the idea behind that one?
Well, you start to hear where dentists are struggling, because we ran a live call center. So we were transferring the patient when the office was open to the practice. And and the number one problem in 800 dentists from day one till the day I sold it was what the front desk did with the
Mm.
patients we gave them.
Oh
There
yeah.
was like a 50% waste factor. Um, and it could be a $30,000 implant case that
Right.
they're just
Yeah.
treating, like they're insignificant, or they're not getting back to them, or
Right.
they're prejudging them, whatever they're doing. So,
Mm.
and I met doctors who were really succeeding, and converting and making choices. And then I was seeing these practices that were run really well, but also giving a really good patient experience. And so I
Mm.
said, I need to start telling them what I know from what people are saying who are calling us, because thousands of phone calls every day, and
Right.
and after a while we were recording all of them, but I'm getting all of this feedback from from my operators about what people are saying, and feedback from the dentist who's saying, sometimes it's this kind of person and that kind of person. Can we change this? And we learned to refine our messaging based on that. But
Mm,
I really said they need to understand marketing, the
yeah.
truth about marketing, because they really didn't, and most of them still don't.
Yeah.
I honestly have to say
Mhm.
that is still my experience, is they
It's
don't
huge.
understand that simple. The title, if you understand the title of the book, you can implement it. Everything that you do affects case acceptance.
Yeah.
Nothing is neutral.
Yeah.
And if you understand that and pay attention to that, all the book is about is how do you pay attention to that, and what can you do? What are the tactical things you can do, and how do you change your mindset about it?
Love it.
I always loved doctors who would say, these people should want to go to the dentist. And I said, the word in that sentence is your problem. You said should, right? Which means you want human nature to be something else.
Yeah.
Um, so we all have all sorts of stuff we should do. We do what
Yeah.
we'd like to do. What's
Yeah.
fun? We'll spend way more money on stupid fun stuff than smart, important stuff. That's human
So
nature.
that's the psychology of it. That is. So
Yeah.
I love that. That book I feel like everybody's read. Which I thought was, yeah, I mean, we have it sitting there. It's amazing. Then you wrote in maybe about, I guess, a decade-ish, not quite a decade ago, Becoming Remarkable, right? So
Yeah.
what was the difference between, or why do you feel like you need to write that book after Everything is Marketing?
Uh, the online world had really surged in terms of, basically what was happening is that now when people talked about you, it lived forever.
Mm,
So they were remarking on you, and it was becoming digital, searchable, shareable,
mm,
undeletable information. And so I said, you have to understand that you have to create a literally remarkable experience, one that they can't resist remarking positively about. And so it
mm,
talked about it. It was an evolution from just the principles of everything is marketing. It's like, this is the new world.
yeah,
Get ahead of this wave, or it's going to pound you into the sand.
I love
Which
it.
is what a lot of practices were saying. Remember, practices were getting ruined by Yelp. Um,
Whew.
because
Yes.
it's really easy to write something negative about almost any dental practice because it's
Oh yeah.
not fun. Um, the more need you have, the more unpleasant the treatment. The
Yep.
net result is something really powerful, and frankly, the best investment people can make, in my mind, is
Yeah.
in their oral health, especially if they need substantial amount of work.
Yeah. So
So
so then
that was the
sorry.
transition.
And then okay, so when did you let go, or when did you sell out? What gave you the reason to sell out of 1-800 Dentist? You're like, hey, I've been here for a long time. Time to try something new. Or is there a specific thing, or somebody came along, they're like, here's a lot of money. You're like, cool, let's go. I'm ready. Or all of the
Well,
above, maybe.
it was, part of it was, there were two things that were the cornerstone of our business. We could buy media efficiently because we were good at it, and we bought it all ourselves. We did it all in house, and that
Wow.
was where most of our profit was to buy television time efficiently, so that we could get the most results. And we had a memorable phone number. Most
Mm.
800 numbers, you got to say them 50 times in a radio
Yep.
spot to get people to remember them, and they remember for 90 seconds. We had at least a 90-day half-life on our memorability of the phone number. And sometimes people would call us and they had seen a commercial a year or two ago. So our
Wow.
phone number said what we did. Um, and that was powerful, and it did it in 7 digits. And so what happened is Google. Google started, and websites. People started to look for a website to tell them about a dental practice more than us.
Mm.
And it was
You
a
see
very
it.
gradual frog boiling experience. And then all of a sudden, streaming comes along, and people just stop watching
Oh.
commercial television. And
Mm.
that's the big struggle for people who advertise today, is
Mm.
if you're not selling cars or burgers or beer or booze, uh, you're having or drugs, obviously, and people don't realize this, but 60% of the advertising on the news, 60% of the ad revenue is big pharma. Now, if
Oh,
you if you
I knew
if
it's
you
high.
watch the news, you go, "Wow, there's that many diseases," um, but they've got an infinite amount of money, and there's
Mm,
only two countries in the world that even allow pharmaceutical advertising, us and New Zealand. The rest of the world says that's crazy to
mm.
promote drugs, and the genius who came up with the line, "Ask your doctor if blank is right for you," everybody stole it because it's perfect.
Yeah.
Um, and the average pharma budget for one drug is $300 million a year, because of course they gotta they gotta read the whole PDR thing, right, in
Yeah.
the commercial. They can't do a
Yeah.
30-second commercial. It's 60 or 90 because they gotta read all of that stuff while somebody's playing tennis or washing their kid in the bathtub or whatever. It's like ridiculous activity because they gotta say it's gonna give you diarrhea, it's gonna make you blind, it's gonna make you impotent, and you could die. They gotta say all that stuff in every commercial. And so television advertising became ineffective. Like the formula broke,
Mm,
because the memorability of our phone number didn't matter because people weren't calling 800 numbers anywhere near as much. So, it, not to get too much into the machinations of stuff, but I did a partnership with Dentsply Sirona, and we
mm,
were going to do a big campaign to promote same day dentistry with CEREC. And then we were
mm.
going to come right on the heels of that, uh, CBCT scanning with Galileo's, their
Yep.
CBT scanner for same day implants, single tooth same day implants. We had this
Yep.
whole campaign, and their merger went so badly between Sirona and
Oh.
Dentsply that they did none of it. They invested nothing in us. They never ran the campaign. They didn't. Eventually, the board eventually fired the CEO. That was his whole idea. 2 years in, and so we languished until, and meanwhile everything else is getting worse, right? The TV advertising is getting more expensive, and the phone number is less and less effective. So that was like the death blow.
Wow, that's
So
interesting. I mean, I could
yeah,
see that because a lot of the times when we're talking marketing or advertising, we talk of things that used to work in the past, and you're in it. Hey, TV potentially was. I mean, obviously, it was amazing for you guys at one point. Radio is also amazing for you guys at one point. So then you have to evolve, but maybe this doesn't work within your strategy. This is great. This is interesting. So then you make that switch. You're like, okay, I'm going to diverge away. You're still in the dental field. You're diverging away a little bit, and then you make you get out your latest book, Super Bold. What is it? The Underconfident to Charismatic in 90 Days. So this was obviously just released a few years ago, relatively recent. So now for the third book, what is the purpose behind that? I think it says in the title, but you can expand
yeah.
on
Well,
that.
you know what the purpose is, yeah. But yeah. So I kept speaking in the dental world and consulting in the dental world, um, but I had this thing that I had developed myself, which was boldness, which I didn't have growing up. I was
Mm,
a true introvert, like a closet case, just incredibly shy, and missed all sorts of opportunities and fun and relationships, and it really bothered me. And because I would see bold people and I'd say they must be born like this. And
mm,
then but I just started emulating them, even though it made me incredibly uncomfortable to do so. And I started to see what bold people know is that if you don't stop yourself, all sorts of wonderful things happen. And and if you live in the discomfort, eventually your comfort zone gets bigger and bigger.
yeah.
And you get to chase your dreams and not be the one stopping yourself. 90% of people stop themselves 90% of the time, more than anybody else. Nobody
Yep.
else is stopping them. They don't need somebody to stop them. They've already talked themselves out of it. Um, And so I I was teaching this group of high school kids. It was like a weekend course where they were teaching them various life skills, how to manage your time, your money, your relationships. And me and several other business people went in and talked about our life lessons. And one of my
Mm,
life lessons was boldness is a superpower. And the
mm,
younger you learn it, the more fulfilling your life will be, the more
mm,
success you'll enjoy, the more adventure you'll enjoy, the more relationships you'll have, the relationships you deserve. um, and high school kids said, yeah, that's great, how?
right. Yeah.
And so I thought,
Practical.
I have to figure out how, because the basic point is that boldness is not a personality trait, it's a life skill,
Mm,
and you can learn it. So I said, how did I learn it, and how can somebody learn it a lot faster? And a lot of it is changing your mindset, and then just understanding some basic social skills that a lot of people aren't taught, and then
mm,
just building, one of the principles that I teach is the principle of dosage, which is you control the intensity
yes.
of your venture into your discomfort zone. So you don't overwhelm yourself. But just like if you're weightlifting, you got to be uncomfortable to lift weights, or you're not going to get any stronger. And so it's applying that same concept. It's like, oh, I know it feels uncomfortable and you don't know how it's going to go, but walk up to that person anyway and introduce yourself. And
Mm,
you start to enjoy discomfort, because you figure out this huge thing. There's a shift that happens where you realize that trying and failing feels better than not trying, because
yes.
not
Yes.
trying's been gnawing at you for years because of the missed opportunities. Because that's what happens is opportunities don't present themselves for and give you days to work them out. Sometimes they're seconds that you
Yep.
say, wait a minute, wait a minute, there's Tom Hanks. I would love to just go tell him how much I appreciate his acting. If you don't do it right then, he's gone. Or
Mm,
somebody else goes up. Or, wow, that's a great looking guy. I would really, some woman say, I would like that. I want to meet that guy before the other women in the room start hitting on him. And all you got to do is wait 10 seconds and some other woman's walking up. And
yes.
so it's like the window of opportunities are so short. And so I tell people, don't just seize the day.
Yep.
Don't just carpe diem, carpe momentum. Seize the
Mm,
moments. And
mm,
that's huge. When you start to do that, when you realize that these things are going to present themselves, and what bold people do is they just act. And
mm.
that's, and the other important thing is people think, well, I would act more boldly if I were more confident. And I said, you've actually got it backwards.
Yep.
Bold action makes you more confident.
Yep.
Bold people do all sorts of stuff all the time that they're not confident about how it's going to go, and that they're
Yep.
going to probably be uncomfortable doing it, and they're probably going to blow it.
Yep.
But it's information. It's like, I'm going to get better at this by stumbling
Yes.
and refining, because you don't get better playing it in your head.
Yep.
You get
I,
better by taking bold action.
I love that. I still remember. I lived in LA for a long time, so you see, obviously you see people around all the time. But the one person, I'm Canadian too, so the one person I saw, I did not go up to. I saw him walking the opposite direction of me. I told my friend, I'm like, look at that guy. Was Wayne Gretzky, and Wayne Gretzky was like my idol growing up. And as soon as you said that, that was the first person I thought of. I was like, dang, I should have been bold in that moment. And that moment was, like you said, it was probably 3 seconds. And I'm sure if I would have said, hey Wayne, like I'm pleasure to meet you. Kind of get a quick picture or whatever. He would have been cool with it because he was just walking and wasn't a big deal. I think he was watching his son-in-law play. But you're right; those bold moments that it can change your life. Like it can have such a big, huge factor in your life. So I want to keep going. I know we don't have tons of time left, so I'm interested because we've been focusing on the
I got
marketing
tons of
and
time, so don't worry
okay,
about it. I'm not on a short clock here.
okay, perfect.
I got
So
I got another half hour. So
perfect. So this is interesting now. So back in the day when you're promoting your book, it was probably easy because you were so well known. You had 1-800 Dentist. It's all over the place. You pop out a book. I'm assuming, and this could be a wrong assumption, you put out the book and it's immediately people are buying it like crazy. Now you're in a totally different trajectory. Um, so I guess a couple questions. Was it easy to promote that book? Maybe your first when everything is marketing, and or how did you do it then? And is it harder or easier now? What different modalities are you using more? You doing more YouTube, maybe Insta, TikTok? I don't know, but what are kind of the differences, and what's the difficulty differences?
Well, there's the thing about the first two books is they were aimed at dentistry, and we were using them. We were giving them away. We weren't in the book business. We weren't interested in
Yeah.
making money. So we would just, Serona at the time bought 10,000 of Everything is Marketing and sent it to every CEREC owner at the time. So I got a heck of a jump start. But we would just give them away everywhere because it was the best brochure ever, because it's what they tell people to do now. It's like, come from a place of generosity, lead with your giving hand, give something valuable without necessarily expecting something in return. So we were doing that way ahead of time with the books. Now with Super Bold, it's a different story, and that came out 2 years ago, and I self-published because it's very hard to get a publisher, and so podcast became the cornerstone of how I promoted the book, as well as social media. So I am out there pretty much every day with something that, most of the time somehow related to Boldness or the book, or an insight that's come along with that, along with some silly stuff, because you can't just have a steady stream of advice or something. You gotta, so you gotta throw in some cat stuff. Fortunately, I have a cat, and she does some silly things, so I can mix it in.
The
But yeah,
cat videos and the
those are,
babies.
yeah. So in the end, it's a cat video, and you see why the cats do crazy
Oh yeah.
things. The fact that they're afraid of aluminum foil, I think, is fabulous. But yeah, so it's challenging. And my next book, what this will lead to, is my next book about boldness, because in doing all of the podcasts and doing lectures on boldness, I'm refining the process even more. And people are doing it. People are coming back to me. I did a 2-day workshop on it with a bunch of people in it, and really really accelerated what they were doing. And obviously the bold promise of the book is, I will help you to become charismatic in 90 days. And you can actually do it. You've got to do all the exercises in the book, and you're going to be uncomfortable for 90 days.
Yeah.
But it becomes a lifelong process. I am bolder every year, and I meet people all the time who read my book and say, I thought it was pretty bold, but now you've given me like a systematic way where I talk to strangers all day long, like everywhere I go. If I'm in the Starbucks line, I'm in an elevator, whatever I do, I'm talking to them and finding out, and you've taught me how to talk to them, to be interested in them. And I didn't invent that. That goes back to how to win friends and influence people. Is you want to be interesting, be interested. I mean, I've had people who think I'm completely fascinating, and they know nothing about me because all I did was ask them about themselves for 20 minutes. And they just went, "You got to meet Fred. He's amazing." Like, what does he do? I don't know, but he's really amazing. So so the book has a bold promise, but the next one will have a publisher behind it. But people don't read, so a lot of times you have to have some other, we call it in the marketing world, a back end, so that they can, whatever meal they want, whatever snack or full meal or 10-course meal or lifetime supply they want, you have to provide it. So the social media is those little snacks. A master class or a video course is the next thing, or a subscription to something is the next level up. And then there's the book. But of course, people don't read, they listen. So I sell 5 times as many audiobooks with all my books as I do any sort of printed version or even Kindle version. And so it's really important to have the audio, because that's where people are listening. They're listening to podcasts. They're listening to books.
And do you feel like, okay, so I'm assuming, in the 80s and 90s, the formats were all longer. Now it's like, if you're doing a TikTok or a reel or something on Facebook, it's quick, 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 quick. Do you find that the media has changed? Do you find that your message, like you have to tweak your message now to make them more like dynamic and attention grabbing, like very, very quickly attention grabbing, more so than it was in, I mean, I guess the 80s, 90s ish or the
Oh, yeah.
2000s?
Well, Twitter turned us into 150 character communicators, which was not
It's no longer
healthy.
Twitter anymore, isn't it? X or something? I think.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's switched.
yeah. Um, it could turn into double X because it's like I think it's going badly. But the attention span is usually pretty short, and you do have there's a way to create the content, but also it's it's so much not about how many followers you have, it's how many people are paying attention.
Yeah.
So somebody who really cares will listen to me talk for 2.5 minutes
Yeah.
about how to talk to a stranger. And somebody who doesn't is going to click anyway. It doesn't matter if I did it in 10 seconds.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
out in 3.
Yeah.
So you can't be afraid of longer content if it feeds your followers what they need.
Yeah.
But this process makes you concise,
Mm.
because you gotta, like when I say, in my first book, I didn't even say that um, boldness is not innate; it's a life skill. You're not born with it. So I never said it that exactly that way. I ended up refining that through podcasts. I
Mm.
refined concise verbiage, that as hard as I worked on the book, I didn't nail some of those things. So
Yeah.
that requirement of brevity, of like you get 3 seconds to get their attention, you get less than 3 a lot of times on TikTok, and
Yeah.
and I don't necessarily care because I don't think my audience is on TikTok, but I'm going to do TikTok anyway,
Yep.
because 2 years from now, TikTok will have evolved into something that I'll be very happy that I've got 2 years of content on.
Yeah, and that it's so interesting. That's what people will tell us too. That, oh, our audience is on TikTok. I'm like, well, a year ago it used to just be all teens, and now this year it's 20 and 30 and maybe 40-year olds, and then next year it's going to be everybody. It's just like Instagram was or Facebook was when they very, very first started. Everything evolves. But speaking of boldness, it's interesting you're talking about that. I just got back from the gym a little while ago, and there's it's Lifetime Fitness here. It's big. I think in Cali and in Texas, but there's 3 or 4 main trainers. But the one trainer who is the most bold, and I'm talking like the exemplary boldness guy, his classes are absolutely jam packed. I would say class normally should have 30 people. It probably has 60. Absolutely jam packed. The other people that are nice, super nice people, just friendly. They may say a quick like hi or just whimper away or not be too much in your face. Their classes have maybe 5 to 10 people. So it's insane. Like they're doing the exact same class. It's the exact same thing. But the guy that is super bold, that's out there, that's saying hi, getting to know you, just saying, hey, what's up? He is absolutely jam-packed and probably being super successful. Whereas the other people are super nice. They're great people. But because their lack of boldness, their success in that particular class is diminished. So everybody needs this. Everybody needs to know, get more bold, get ways to get more bold. So I appreciate that.
Figure out how you're stopping you. Listen, get so that you hear the voice that's stopping you, that's saying, oh, I don't want to, that would be embarrassing, people are going to laugh, they're going to think I'm a show off. Bold people, they may hear it, they don't listen. They take what being super bold means is you are just allowing yourself to bring your full self to the world. I mean,
Yeah.
like when I'm on stage, they're getting a crazy man, right? Because I'm like, I'm just going to bring everything I got, and I want your attention. I want this to sink in. I know people. I was just listening to actually somebody. He was a German scientist, and he was explaining AI, um, and he was so boring. It was astounding. And I'm listening, and like, this is really good content, and I'm falling asleep because he spoke in a monotone with
Mm,
zero enthusiasm about his information. Um, just because he's an engineer, he's not a public speaker. But,
yep.
you know, why wouldn't you want, all charisma is that you're comfortable being wherever you are. You just say to
Mm,
yourself, I belong here, wherever
yep.
you are.
Yep.
And people are drawn to that. That's all
Yep.
charisma is you're pulling people in without having to do anything except display your full self. And you don't worry, bold people don't worry about who doesn't love them.
Yep.
Whereas we learned in high school to worry about everybody's opinion. And you gotta let that go, man. You gotta minimize that radically down to 5 or 6 people whose opinions really matter, and that person you're focusing on.
Yeah.
And know that the more impactful you become in life, the more detractors you will have.
Mm,
And now we live in a world where haters rule the day because it's
yep.
so easy to be one. And guess what? When you're a critic, it means you're just afraid to actually try something yourself. So you got to knock somebody else down. It's so easy to be a critic. It's so hard to be a creator
Oh,
and
it's
take
so
those
true.
risks.
I love that. That's such a powerful comment. We've had a bunch of videos that have done pretty well on some of the social medias. Some of them get million plus views, and there's a lot of comments that come with those views. And I'd say, man, at least I wouldn't say half, but I'd say maybe, especially when they're really dental related, maybe 20%, 30% are pretty intense, hurtful, negative comments, And I'm just like, well, I heard this comment. I can't remember who said it. Might have been Lewis Howes or somebody, probably more so like that. That said, nobody above you that's doing better than you is going to try to bring you down. They're not going to try to put all these negative things in your head. It's the people that aren't doing anything, that aren't being bold, that aren't, where they want to be. They're trying to bring you down to their level, so that when I hear or when I see those comments, that's what I think of often. So yes, there's definitely a lot
Yeah.
of negativity out there that you just have to say, hey, they're just not where they want to be. I think Gary Vee said something along the lines that he feels sorry, if he feels like empathy for these people because he knows they're in a worse position than them. So he's not like, oh, I'm angry that they're doing these comments. He says, hey man, they're in a bad position. Like if they were super happy and grateful with life and everything's going great, they wouldn't be saying those comments. Like I have never ever went online and said like, you suck, this content is terrible or whatever, because I'm not that person. But the people who are doing that are in a really tough or low situations. So sometimes you just have to have empathy, and maybe it makes it feel a little bit better.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things that a friend of mine and I were talking about is one of the qualities of being bold is you're bold enough to be empathetic.
Mm,
You don't have this thing that you're protecting. You're not trying to be perfect. You're not trying to be infallible. You're not trying to avoid attention. You're willing to be empathetic to somebody, and just like it takes boldness to apologize, it takes a boldness to ask for feedback. I want critique. I don't want criticism necessarily, but I want critique
mhm.
from somebody in the arena. The Teddy
Yes.
Roosevelt quote. It's like,
Yep.
if you're in the arena, I want to know what you got to say. If you're a public speaker and you say, I got a couple of notes for you, it's like, bring it. But if you're some dope in the back of the room who's just like, he doesn't know what he's talking about, right? He's
Right.
full of shit, blah, blah, blah. Like that guy wants to be a public speaker so badly that he has to tear every speaker down. And
Yeah.
and as it's true, I feel sorry for those people because they don't know a way out.
Yeah.
The way out is stop criticizing and start doing stuff. Start taking chances, take risk, be uncomfortable, fail, embarrass yourself, and
Mm,
realize embarrassment is a choice. You don't have to be embarrassed. People can
I
say you
love.
should be embarrassed about that, and say, "Yeah, except I'm not." Okay, my fly's down. I'm not going to kill myself. Okay, uh, you know, um,
It's so true.
so these things are major shifts, and I want as many people as possible to know these things,
Yes.
because we need people trying to boldly solve big problems. We got big
Mm,
problems in the world.
yes.
I
Mhm.
want leaders to be bold enough to stand up for what they actually mean and what they actually are trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And we have a real, in the political arena, we have an embarrassing shortage of leadership. We
Yes.
actually have the reverse of leadership in extreme,
Mm,
because that is somehow being rewarded,
hmm.
because there's more haters than lovers. Hate's easy to stimulate.
Yes.
Love is hard to get people to do. But I'm sorry, I'm on the love track.
Yeah.
And
I
that's the
love
way
it.
I'm going. Yeah,
You guys spread the love, as my wife always says.
yeah.
Fred, this is amazing. I love this conversation. This is great. I learned so much. I learned a lot about your history and the history of 1-800-Dentist. I love how you're being bold and putting that out there. I love how you gave us the insights of the different companies and your background. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us
Well,
for
there's
half hour
one more
45.
thing that now I'm
Bring
also
it.
running a startup that is
Okay, yeah.
a software company that streamlines the process of getting patient video testimonials,
I
and
saw
then
that.
get yeah. So people approached me. They had the software, and they said, "We think you're the perfect person to run this business." And I said, "Yeah, probably am." Uh, and even though gradually my fame is dimming, because I haven't been on TV in a while, but I think that the patient testimonial is the most powerful marketing tool ever created. And it's
Mm,
just, how do you get it? How do you maximize it? Because there's so many free places to put great content now, and there's nothing better than somebody grabbing their phone and saying in 30 or 40 seconds the difference your practice has made in their life, or why they would never
mm,
go to anybody else, or why this visit totally exceeded their expectations, or this
mm.
practice does, or why they love their hygienist. Whatever it is, those things are incredibly persuasive, more persuasive than any
Yeah.
TV ad I've ever written. And so I'm helping practices to fully implement that, because it's right. A lot of them are trying to do it, but they're like, I don't know how to get them. I don't know where the heck they are. They're on somebody's phone. They're on a hard drive. I don't know where to put them. And so I help them with all that, because I'm still excited about marketing, and I got the entrepreneur's disease. I like, yeah, I can do that too.
That's why you never
So
stop, never stop.
yeah.
So
So
what's the name? I did read up on this. What was the name of the company again?
it's called True Blue Social Smiles, and it's
True Boost.
TRUBLU. There's no E's there. And yeah, so if you went to the website, you'd get a basic understanding of what it does. And I'm just, I love dentistry. I mean, it's been really, really good to me. And I have, hundreds of friends in the industry. Now that's probably a low estimate.
Yeah.
But there's thousands of people that I've had an impact, tens of thousands of people I've
Oh
had
yeah.
an impact on with my books. And so I want them to thrive, because I think what they're doing, what you guys do every day, is so valuable and so underappreciated, that I'm just trying to elevate that any way I can.
I love I love how you still have that passion even I won't mention your birthday. I did see when you were born, but I'm not going to mention it. But you're going strong still. I absolutely love it. I think that's amazing, and still in dentistry. Who would have thought? Like I've had a couple of situations where maybe like 10 seconds of my life have changed the trajectory of my life forever. For you, it sounds like, your friend getting that one random phone number, 1-800-Dentist, out of the blue, has changed your life for absolutely ever. So it's amazing how these these minimal moments, these bold moments that you chose to go with have absolutely changed the trajectory
Oh,
of your
yes.
life.
If you can just start saying yes to certain things, even though you're like, oh, this is going to go badly, or like, this scares the crap out of me, and just do it anyway, I mean, it takes boldness to certainly to start a business. It takes,
Mm.
it takes boldness to meet somebody that you think would be impactful in your life. But most of us, our success is almost entirely based upon the people we've met that affected us. I mean,
Mm.
I get into advertising because I met this guy who ran an ad agency and I went, I want to work here. And he went, I'm not giving you a job. You don't know how to write advertising, but here's this book. And he gave me a book by George Lois, an author, called George Be Careful. And it was about the heyday of the ad world. And then he
Mm.
said, and there's a night school that they teach advertising taught by creative directors in LA. And this was a brief window that this was happening.
Wow.
He did the greatest thing. He didn't give me a job. He
Mm.
told me what I needed to do to get that job. And in 6 months, I got a job at the first place I interviewed at. And it
Wow.
all happened. But it was that moment of him,
Wow.
sometimes a mentor just comes in and goes, nope, dummy, it ain't that. It's this, right? Sorry you wanted the greased runway, but you got to work for it. So
That's amazing. I love these stories. You could tell stories for days and be entertaining the whole time. But yeah, once again, thank you so much for your time. This has been outstanding. I love learning from the OGs of dentistry, the marketing geniuses. So I appreciate it. And if you need anything from me, like obviously we've been doing lots of social media stuff, and so we have some back end knowledge of that. But if you need anything from me, Fred, absolutely reach out. I just appreciate this so much.
yeah, I mean, I'm trying to find the doctors who are ready for True Blue Social Smiles because a lot of them aren't ready yet. A lot of them are so timid they can't ask. They need my book first. They need the Super Bowl book first. They need to read that, do some exercises, then they'll be comfortable asking people to do a testimonial.
Yeah,
So
let's spread the
trying to
word.
find guys who'll make it work. Yeah. So
Let's
thanks.
spread the
Great. I
word.
mean, it's so great to spend this time. It was really fun.
Awesome, Fred. Have a great rest of your day and happy birthday.
Yes. Thank you.
I will talk soon.